Well, I'm sure most of you have been expecting this to happen sooner or later. Hello everyone, my name is Xerix, and welcome to yet another Creepypasta video. This time, we are going to be looking at 10 stories. Not the usual, 2 stories or maybe 4. 10. My first ever top 10 Creepypastas list. Of course, we gotta do it on my favorite cartoon in the whole wide world. A cartoon that I love so much. A cartoon that I've established loving many times. The Loud House. Let's face it, this was gonna happen eventually. Now, before we dive into the stories, I just want to bring up something. This will be split up into 3 separate videos. In the first video, which is also this video, I will be looking at number 10 and number 9. In the second video, I will be looking at number 8 to number 5. And in the third video, I will be looking at number 4 to number 1. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because stories number 10 and 9 are noticeably much longer than the other 8 stories. And I don't really want people to sit through, these 2 long stories and then have some much shorter stories at the end. So, yeah. Also, please, for the love of God, do not bully or harass the authors of these stories. Links to these stories will be in the description below, like always, but please don't bully or harass the authors of these stories. Alright, the stories aren't good, but that doesn't give you an excuse. That's not an excuse for you to insult the authors and say that it's trash. I mean, some of these aren't pretty bad, but I don't want to, I don't condone bullying. Alright, just don't. So, with that said, let's jump right in. These are the top 10 worst Loud House creepypastas. Let us begin. Number 10. The Loud House Lost DVD. I have always been a Nickelodeon fan. In 2016, they made a new show called The Loud House, which was created by a sexual harasser that the cartoon community ignored. The Loud House involves a show about an 11-year-old boy named Lincoln Loud trying to survive in a house with his 10 sisters. I'm not reading the names of the 10 sisters. You should already know them. If not, then, well, why the fuck are you watching this video? I can recall that one day when I found a lost DVD of The Loud House. It was a very horrifying experience. So here's the story. I always watched The Loud House on Nickelodeon. This became one of my favorite shows, and I made a schedule to record every episode. So I thought to myself, could there be any Loud House DVDs? This made me drive to the movie store. Well, what the fuck? When was this story made? Movie store? Wow. When was this story made? Because I'm pretty sure movie stores were long dead when The Loud House came out in 2016. Because, streaming services are what's big now, even though streaming services fucking suck compared to DVDs and Blu-rays and VHSs. But that's a topic for another day. When I arrived, I went to the aisle with Nickelodeon DVDs. There were numerous DVDs and VHS tapes. I bought 2 SpongeBob VHS tapes that had every episode from seasons 1 and 2, since I also like SpongeBob. Then I found 10 DVDs of The Loud House with titles such as Volume 1 or Volume 2. So, you found 10 DVDs. Did you buy all of them? You found 10 DVDs, and then you found 2 SpongeBob VHSs. That's 12 fucking things. Jesus, man. How much money do you have? Holy shit. But I found this DVD of The Loud House with a disc written with a sharper. A sharper. Not a Sharpie. A sharper. And it said, The Loud House. And that's it, apparently. There were no pictures on the cover. It has a note which read, "This episode was made by an unknown person in Syria. It was found in a pile of debris after an earthquake in a pile of rubble, and there was a jar with a DVD, a picture of Lincoln and a bag of intestines, and a picture of a disfigured person resembling a sexual harasser that the cartoon community ignored. I later inserted the disc into my old DVD player." What do you never specified that you bought it. Did you buy the DVD? You never said that you bought it, so I'm just gonna assume that you're watching it in the movie store. The main menu was just a white background. It had a selection of 8 episodes. Number 1, Left in the Dark. Number 2, Baby Steps. Number 3, Pulp Friction. Number 4, 11 Louds Aleppin. That's good. If you could see on the image, it's even misspelled on the image, so nice going. Number 5, Fantastic Voyage. Number 6, Kick the Bucket List. Number 7, Cover Girls. Number 8, Unknown. I watched all of the episodes and they were normal. Well, all of them except for Unknown. The screen showed Lincoln with blood on one side. I drew a recreation of it as you could see in the right. Alright, and you could see this masterpiece. I mean, to be fair, at least the author admits that it is poorly drawn, so I'll give the author that. At least the author is self-aware that it looks like shit. I'll give them points for that. You know, I gotta love honesty. The title card was a white background with Lincoln's head. Then all of a sudden he became jet black with a scorching fire in his eyes. Then it showed Lincoln going into his room, flopping onto his bed, and saying, "Well, today's the first day of summer. Might as well read my comics in my underwear." After that, a time card was shown saying 10 minutes later. Lincoln's parents, Rita and Lynn Sr., went out to their ballroom, dancing, and reminded the kids to lock the door. Lenny obeyed her parents. The next scene was Lily, Lisa, Lola, Lana, Lucy, Lynn, Luna, Luanne, Lori, and Lincoln on the couch with Lenny standing in front of them. You know what? You could have just made that a lot easier by saying the next scene was all of the loud kids on the couch with Lenny standing in front of them. That would make that way easier. Why do you have to say the names of all of them? There's no reason for that. She announced, "I'm stupid, and now I realize that I am a loser." Then, out of nowhere, she grabbed a bottle of cyanide pills. Everybody yelled, "Don't do it, Lenny!" Lenny teared up. Suddenly a deep voice growled, "Do it! Do it, you pathetic excuse for a loud sister! Do it!" She dipped her head back and swallowed all of the cyanide pills. Her eyes were blank. She started to vomit blood. A few seconds later, she fell on the floor, dead. The screen cut to a screenshot of Lenny with blood coming out of her mouth and nose. The back of her head was soaked with blood. Lincoln and his sisters screamed for their life. They all ran around screaming. Bobby walked in and slipped on a pool of blood. His head cracked. Lori ran to Bobby and cried. A few days later, Lisa was making an experimental bomb using Bobby and Lenny's blood. When she combined every liquid she had in her small test tubes, she called everyone to see the explosion. The bomb exploded, sending her flying. She then hit the window, shattering it. When she hit the pavement, a truck ran over Lisa's back, causing her to break her spine as a brutal cracking noise was heard. She tried to call for Lincoln, but before she could speak, she died. Lincoln and his sisters came to see what happened, and all of them looked very upset. Lori called the police and the ambulance. They came and pronounced her dead at the scene. The next day, Lucy tried to commit suicide by stabbing herself with a pair of scissors. She cried, "I want to die because I want a short life." Luna and Lynn walked in on Lucy. "Are you trying to stab yourself?" Luna gasped. "I'm telling Mom," Lynn yelled. It was nighttime and Luna and Lynn were trying to talk to Rita. All of a sudden, Luanne came bursting through the door with a knife. She proceeded to stab Lucy and make a hole in the wall. Is she a Kyle? "Goodbye, world," Lucy weakly whispered. Then Lucy was dead. When Luna and Lynn came in with their mom, they noticed that Lucy was gone, but all that was left were some candles, some of which were lighted. They also noticed knife marks and blood. The next day, Lincoln was taking out the trash when he saw his best friend Clyde hanging by a rope. Okay, let's just fucking... What the fuck is going on in this story? Everything that's happening is just for no reason. This is just things happening with no rhyme or reason. No build up to anything, just Things happening for no reason. His skin was decomposing, blood was coming out of his body, and some of his ribs were showing. One of his eyes was hanging from its socket. It fell out, and Lincoln ran into the bathroom and started puking. He went to his room, where his sisters were there, wanting to cheer him up. They told him that they saw Lola out the window dead. Oh, fucking okay then. Again, for no reason. After this, his sisters decided to sleep with him. It cut to a flashback when their dad had a... Oh my god, are you fucking serious? It cut to a flashback when their dad had a celebration of killing the Jews because he was an a-hole when he was drunk. Then he went to some bar. Sure, okay, just casual anti-Semitism, just thrown in for no reason. You know what I don't understand? Is it anti or is it anti? I don't know, maybe it's a tomato thing. Some people say anti, some people say anti. What, just nice casual anti-Semitism for no fucking reason. So, fucking no fucking reason at all. Good. After a few beers, Lincoln's dad was so drunk at this point, he actually had threw Lola into a tiger gate. What fucking bar has a tiger gate? Lincoln wondered what the noise that he heard was, and he saw the horror. Lincoln screamed in terror and called the police. The cops arrested Lincoln's dad, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. After the family left, Luna brought his cowbell and destroyed it. You could have worded that a little better, because the way it's worded, Luna brought his cowbell and destroyed it, it makes you think that Luna is a boy and not a girl. I think you could have worded that a little better. I know what they're talking about, because the dad had a fucking cowbell. I know what they're talking about. Luna was sent an invitation to a Mick Swagger concert. The invitation said, to Luna, plus one other. And that's it? Nothing else? Okay. She was so excited, and she asked Lori if she would come with her. She said yes, and they both went to the concert. During the event, Luna was half drunk, and a strange black-hooded figure gave them a box of beer and even a pack of cigarettes. After the concert, they were driving back home late at night in the woods. They were both drunk and drugged. Suddenly, without warning, they drove off the road and fell in a ditch next to a river and flew out the van. The screen was blurry at this moment. The next day, Lincoln saw the news that Luna and Lori Loud died in a car crash. He became sad upon hearing this. The next scene was the pets on a stack stabbing Lola's twin sister, Lana, with a kitchen knife. After Lana died, the pets knew that what they had done was bad. They all... What the fuck is going on for real? What is going on? They all went to the basement and hung themselves. 30 seconds later, they was dead. Lincoln went to the basement to work on a project and saw Gio with his entrails hanging. Cliff had his legs amputated. Charles was decapitated, and Walt had his wings, eyes, and beak missing. I thought they just simply hung themselves. I didn't know there was... Okay. He screamed and ran up the stairs. One day later, Lincoln and his sisters were in the yard playing until a stray Doberman grabbed Lily and took off running. Lincoln and his sisters tried to run after them, but it was too late. The dog mauled and devoured Lily. After that, Luanne was making a video for her website. She grabbed a gun and a slingshot and joked, "What do you call a slingshot with a gun? A gunslinger." She laughed until she accidentally shot herself with both weapons. She collapsed onto the floor, dead. The animation began to deteriorate. Lincoln and Lynn stormed in and screamed. They saw the video and were horrified. Luanne was buried at the cemetery along with Lenny, Lisa, Luna, Lori, Lana, and Lola. Okay, so Lynn and Lincoln are the only ones that are still alive. I swear to God, if this becomes a fucking Lincoln fanfiction, this better not be, because, well, I mean, to be fair, that would be kind of a good thing, because then that would actually make the story scary if it became a fucking Lincoln fanfic. Lynn decided to sleep with Lincoln until she fell off the bed. She landed head first, snapping her neck, then she died. Everything is just happening for no reason. What the fuck? The next night, Rita told Lincoln to sleep with her. He then stabbed his mom. And why the fuck did he do that? For no reason. Like, literally, this one is just for no fucking reason. He then stabbed his mom and threw his and her stuff around. After that, he wrote a letter. It read, To anyone who finds this, I caused another chain reaction. No, you didn't. Lenny was the one that started it, not you. What the fuck are you talking about? Lenny was the one that started it. Only this time, it caused my sisters and my parents to die. So, I'm going to join them in heaven, or hell, I don't know. Goodbye, world. Then he grabbed a stool and a noose from Lucy's room, and he put the noose around his neck and then stepped on the stool. He then kicked the stool and hung himself. The episode ended. I got nightmares from seeing the death of the members of the Loud family. I stopped watching Nick and I threw away all my Nickelodeon items like my SpongeBob plush, my posters, and the other Nickelodeon DVDs I had. Wow, overdramatic one? Wow, overdramatic much? You just watched a weird episode of a crappy show. That doesn't mean you have to stop watching the whole network. There are other Nicktoons out there that are also leagues fucking better than Loud House. I lost my sanity. Someone found me and locked me in a mental ward. I know it sounds weird that I was locked up due to a kid's show, but it happened. Yeah, I'm sure it did. I later escaped and went back to my house. And that's the ending. That was a great story. What an amazing story that was. 10 out of 10. Great story. Everything that happened, I love the casual anti-Semitism, the fact that everything was happening for no fucking reason at all. Great story. Great story. Just great story. This is only number 10. God help me. Number 9. The Loud House. Luanne crosses the line. Note, this story is obviously fake. But this was fun. Well, thank you for stating that it's fake. I was hoping that it would be fake, because otherwise I would have nightmares. Thank God the nightmares will be prevented. Hold on. One of my favorite cartoons on Nickelodeon was called The Loud House. I'm pretty sure you are all familiar with this series. Nope, I've never heard of this show ever. I don't know anything about it. I've never made any videos about it. I have never heard of this show. It's about an 11-year-old kid named Lincoln Loud living in a family of 10 sisters, whose names were, once again, I'm not reading them. You should already know what the sisters' names are. If not, then why are you watching this video? They live in a town called Royal Woods, Michigan, but after this incident, I will never look at this show the same way ever again. The trouble all started when I came home from school one day. I flung my backpack somewhere around the living room, but I didn't care where it was, because all I could think of was the Loud House. I scurried up the stairs, hoping that a new Loud House episode had been aired. When I arrived at my room and checked my computer, there was a notification saying that there was indeed a new Loud House episode aired. I did a small victory dance, happy that my wish had came true. The notification had a link to the episode, so not wasting any more time, I quickly clicked on the link and it immediately took me to the newly released episode. Yeah, this sounds legit. I totally trust this. It started out with the usual upbeat intro that I always hum to. When the intro was over, the title card showed Luanne laughing with a gravestone in the background with Lincoln's face on it, and the title of the episode was called Luanne Crosses the Line, in the usual font and some background music to accompany it. I found it strange, so I took a screenshot of it. This title card creeped me out, but I shrugged it off, thinking that it was a normal episode with a darker turn to it. Oh, how wrong I was. When the episode started, it showed an exterior view of the house as usual. Then it zoomed in on Luanne in the basement, pacing around with an angry expression. Okay, Luanne, you need to go farther than ever before, she said to herself. I was confused as to what was going on. Why was Luanne acting like this? After a few seconds of silence, Luanne then gets an idea. A really messed up idea. I know exactly what to do. Luanne sported a crooked smile and rubs her hands together in an evil way as evil music began to play as it zoomed in on Luanne's disturbing face. The next day, Luanne was putting a banana peel on the living room floor. She then hears a car being parked. She looked out the window. It revealed to be the rest of the family parking Vanzilla. I assumed that the rest of the family went out somewhere, and Luanne wanted to stay behind so she could set all of this up. Luanne ran up to the attic where no pranks had been set up to hide. The rest of the family enters the house, and almost immediately they had triggered a tripwire, which caused an axe to head towards them on a rope. Everyone gasps and ducks, except for Lenny. I couldn't bear to watch one of my favorite characters get brutally murdered, so I quickly turned around and covered my eyes. How come in both this story and the previous one, Lenny is the first one to die? Okay. What an interesting coincidence. All I heard was the axe swinging and Lenny's blood-curdling scream and then blood splattering. I didn't want to see the aftermath, but morbid curiosity got the better of me. I bravely turned around and opened my eyes to see a horrifying sight that made my heart drop to the bottom of my chest. Lenny was on the ground, decapitated. Blood oozed out of her exposing neck. The family let out an ear-piercing scream so loud that I had to turn down my volume because I thought my neighbors would hear it and call the police. As the family runs around the living room, Luna, Lana, Lola, and Lisa bumped into the couch, knocking it over, and the couch sprung them through the roof as their screams were heard and a loud splat from outside, which I could only assume that the worst had happened. The rest of the family ran up the stairs and found a note on Lana and Lola's bedroom door, which read, "Pull me." "Dibs not," Lynn screamed as she touched her nose. So did her family, but unfortunately for Lori, she was last. Okay, I don't know what the fuck is going on. "Ugh, literally?" she groaned. She headed slowly for the door and warily pulled it to reveal all of Lana's pets as they all attacked Lori in violent ways, like all the snakes wrapping around Lori's body, Lana's gators biting on her legs, and her pig charging at her multiple times. All me and the family could do was watch in horror as the firstborn sibling was getting mauled. Finally, the pets disperse and go back in their room. Lori was left there, unconscious, with bitten-off legs and many bruises. I almost threw up at the sight. The remaining family members, which were Lynn Sr., Rita, Lynn, Lincoln, Lucy, and Lily, were running to the basement. Lucy was about to open the door, but Lincoln stopped her. "Don't pull that door. Remember what happened to Lori? I'll handle this." "What? But sweetie," Rita cried, trying to convince Lincoln. "It's better than watched another one of my siblings suffer," Lincoln declared as he charges towards the door while wailing out, "Charge!" He bursts the door open and falls down the basement stairs, but I was not expecting the end result. When Lincoln had reached the bottom, he got impaled by a bed of spikes, causing him to scream and then slowly go unconscious, much to the family's shock. "Lincoln," they all cried out as tears bursted down their cheeks. Lynn runs down the stairs as well, but accidentally slipped on a banana peel and ended up getting impaled like Lincoln. Lynn Sr., Rita, Lucy, and Lily were the only ones left. They all were in the cross space. They all looked scared. "What has become of our family?" Lynn Sr. cried out. What's going to happen to us?" Lucy asked worriedly. "I don't know, but we can't stay here," Rita announced. It cut to the four walking nervously back in the house. Lynn Sr. walks in the living room, failing to notice the peculiar placed banana peel that Luanne had placed earlier, but Rita does. "Honey, look out," she called out. It was too late. The father slipped on the banana peel and crashed into the fireplace and rubs his head and groans. He then sees raccoons coming out of the fireplace and walking up to Lynn Sr.'s face. "Ha ha, nice raccoons," he innocently said, but the raccoons ended up attacking the father, scratching him, biting him, and many more violent maneuvers. The raccoons go back in the fireplace and then it reveals Lynn Sr.'s body, all scratched up and bloody. "Honey!" Rita screamed, kneeling to his side. "No, I'm fine," he said as he coughed up blood. "Go on without me." The trio decided to hide in Lincoln's room, but when the entered, they triggered another tripwire, which sent a giant cinder block crushing them as blood slowly oozed out from under the block. Luanne came down the attic, laughing psychotically at her pranks. I was shaking uncontrollably now. Words couldn't even describe what I had just watched. Why would Luanne even do that? I asked myself. I was not expecting what had happened next. Luanne then stopped laughing and then turned towards me. Why did I do this? Because my family deserved it, Luanne said to me. My eyes shrunk and my body continued to shake like in earthquake. You 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 can hear me? I nervously asked the jokester. Duh, what gave you that first clue, Sherlock? Luanne laughed once again. You know I can't have any witnesses. BRB, she said as she ran of somewhere off screen. I heard the sound of beakers moving around, and Luanne came back into frame with what seemed like a beaker filled with a blue substance. What is that? I asked, not really wanting to know. Oh, just a little experiment from Lisa. Just let me do my own thing. She then splashed the substance onto the screen and it burned a hole through my computer. Luanne pulled her hands out and her hands actually managed to come through the screen and grab me. I tried to run away by squirming out of her grip, but it was no use as she dragged me into the screen. When I started to regain consciousness, I saw two familiar feet in front of me. Luanne? I asked. Bingo! Luanne called out and picked me up and put me right side up, revealing to me that we were standing in the house hallway and Luanne was dressed in her clown costume. Boy, you must be a heavy sleeper, she laughed psychotically again. Someone help me! I screamed as I ran down the stairs. Oh, no you don't, Luanne called from behind me. I raced past Lenny's dead body and ran outside screaming. I looked back and Luanne wasn't very far behind. As I continued to run, my legs began to cramp up. Luanne was getting closer and closer. I braced for impact as Luanne attacked me violently. I finally managed to spree out of the fight cloud in an attempt to run away, but I felt something wrap around my legs. I looked down and saw Luanne holding onto my legs tightly. Get away from me, you maniac! I screamed. I tried to run, but Luanne tripped me and started dragging me back to the house, ready to do God knows what to me. When I started to regain consciousness again, I noticed that I was tied down to some table as Luanne came into my vision. What did I just say about witnesses? What were you thinking going out there? You could have ruined my plans, she sternly said. What plans? I asked worriedly. The plan to murder the witness. Her voice deepened when she said that last part and got closer to me with a chainsaw. As she started it up, I could only look on in horror, but right as Luanne could end my life, I heard something being cracked, followed by Luanne's blood-curdling scream as she crashes to the ground. I turned my head slightly to see a blurry red hat. Then I heard an eerily familiar voice. Lola, Lana, release him, said the voice. I then felt the shackles being unlocked as I could feel my limbs again. I lifted up my body to see Lana. Lola, I said in my mind. Are you okay, mister? Lana asked, but I answered by hugging both her and Lola. I got up and then saw half of the family beating up Luanne to a pulp, holy shit, and the other half checking on me. I'm okay, everyone, I said. Way better now that you're here. All of a sudden, I woke up in a hospital room. As it turns out, I was in a coma. It was all a dream. All of it. I told the doctor about Loud House and Lost Episode, Luanne, Lenny, whatever, but the doctor had no clue what I was talking about. I told him to turn on Nickelodeon, and he did. It was an episode of Jimmy Neutron that was playing. And that's when I realized it was all a dream. The Loud House never existed. It was all a dream. That's not how the story ends, unfortunately. It just ends with, I'm okay, everyone, I said. Way better now that you're here. But I did give it a more interesting and appropriate ending. So yeah, I don't know what to say about this one. I think this one kind of speaks for itself. So let's move on to the next story, shall we?